Welcome everybody. This is a special meeting of the Mason County Commissioner for June 9th. A special meeting around meeting with Prothman Associates for the replacement of either just the person or the position of support services. With that, we will begin with an introduction of who we have here regarding our staff. I'm Randy Netherland, Mason County Commissioner. I have Sharon Trask, County Commissioner, Kevin Schutte, County Commissioner. On board here, I also have Travis Adams, who is our Under Sheriff, Diane Zorn, who's basically our Manager of Support Services, Jennifer, who handles our bookkeeping, and who do we have with Madison?
No Madison.
Does anybody recognize Madison? Madison, would you mind telling us who you are? Well, this is an open meeting of the County Commission, so they are welcome, and they're welcome to not tell us who they are as well. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on. If you would like to take it and introduce your people, please, and take it from here.
Okay, good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing Philip and I to work with you guys on this and facilitate today's discussion on whether hiring a county administrator or staying with the support services director position is the right move for Mason County today and into the future. Our task was to interview and document each commissioner's views on the county's organizational structure and the possibility of creating this county administrator position. We completed the task last week, and we have distributed each commissioner's comments amongst the three of you. And now we are here to facilitate the discussion on your comments between the three of you and the pros and cons of such a decision. So I'm going to be turning the facilitation of the discussion over to Philip. At the time of the interviews, we wanted to say up front that two of the commissioners strongly favored creating a county administrator. And one commissioner was strongly favored refilling the support services director as a co-equal to the other directors. With that in mind, Philip will open the discussion with a brief summary of the pros and cons of adding a county administrator, and he will facilitate the board's discussion around this whole topic. So Philip, are you there?
You're muted, Philip.
How's that now?
There you go.
Much better. I don't know, sometimes I'm better seen rather than heard. But in any case, it's a pleasure to be with you, commissioners. And for the public that may be tuning in, my background is, until recently, for 12 and a half years, I was the county administrator for Jefferson County. Have a long career in public administration, both at as well as the county, but at the city and special purpose district, water and sewer district level, as well as a master's in public administration. So pleased to partner with Sonia and the Prothman company in this project. So at the outset, I just want to say that it's manifest that either alternative, either refilling the support services director position when Frank Pinter retires, or replacing it with a county administrator position, either one can work. Clearly, you've been operating successfully for the past 10 years or so under the current model with the three co-equal directors of support services, community services, and public works. And many surrounding counties operate with a county administrator form of government. And in the agenda packet that was given to you folks, you'll see that actually throughout Washington state, there are 14 counties that have a county administrator form of government. 21 counties rely primarily on the Board of County Commissioners to administer to the departments. And an additional 4 counties have elected county executives. So all of those models can work, right? So really the question for you, the commissioners, is which organizational model is really in the best interests of two things. One, for Mason County as an institution itself and its own internal governance, and also for you as a body, a legislative body, for you to be able to accomplish your goals for the community in pursuing policies and initiatives and coordinating with state and regional partners. So what model works best for you? And that's ultimately your decision. And so there's not a right or wrong here. It's really what you determine collectively works for you. And as we go through this today, whichever decision you ultimately make, I'd encourage you to really listen carefully to one another, to hear both the aspirations and the concerns of your seatmates, and think about, does that change your perspective on what's in the best interests of the county? And equally important, what can be done with the concerns? You know, each of you had concerns on one alternative or the other. What can be done to try to mitigate those concerns so that collectively you all are happiest with the outcome? So, and how can you work together to try to address each other's concerns? So I think it's an opportunity for really the board to come together and trying to listen to one another and work together. So with that, what I'd like to suggest for moving ahead today is I'll very quickly summarize some of the key pros and cons for both of the alternatives that came out of your interviews in the last 2 weeks. But then what I'd like to do is ask each of you, and I'll do it by district number, each of you to take turns elaborating further on things that I may not have covered. And then let's open it up for conversation among the three of you. And at some point after that's run part of its course, I'll invite your support services director, Frank Pinter, to add his thoughts on the pros and cons and his recommendations, and then allow for further conversation. Then finally, we'll sort of focus on what are those mitigation ideas for whichever direction you may be trending. And ultimately, hopefully at the end of the day today, you'll feel comfortable in making a decision on whether to retain the existing structure with 3 co-equal directors with a support services director, or to create a county administrator position that all departments would report to. Does that sound like a reasonable approach?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so so 2 of you, at least during the interviews, were favoring the idea of creating a county administrator position. So what were some of the key positives for that? The idea of having a county administrator is that person can administer the day-to-day operations of the county. That does a couple of things. It frees time up for you, the Board of County Commissioners, to focus on other things, like your strategic vision of where you want to take the county, diving into your committee assignments and special assignments that each of you have, and importantly as well, to be able to do more active collaboration with some of your regional partners and be active in Olympia during session, for example. So it frees you up to do other things rather than administering the day-to-day operation of the county. The county administrator becomes accountable to you for executing your policies and your priorities, and you can hold that person accountable. And in turn, they hold the department directors accountable because they're on the line and they want to make sure that the departments are fulfilling your direction. Thirdly, a county administrator, if you choose a good person, will bring additional public administration professionalism to the county and to its procedures, and consistency and efficiency in administration of the county, particularly in dealing with consistently with adopted HR policies, dealing with budgeting, and also bring in stronger planning and project management to the county to help you advance your goals. And then lastly, a county administrator can help reduce the competition that sometimes exists between departments because they're all reporting to one person. And I know in my position, I really brought the department directors, the appointed department directors together, and we formed a team. And I met with them regularly as a team to work on really improving communication between the departments, having people put their heads together on creating shared policies and procedures that are countywide, and really doing shared problem solving of issues that the county is facing. So it sort of becomes a senior brain trust. Commissioner Schutte, do you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, sorry. So what are some of the downsides potentially of a county administrator? One concern I heard from commissioners is that the commissioners might potentially overly rely on the county administrator and step back from their own roles. Another concern related to that is that the county administrator, a fear at least, among some of you, that a county administrator might follow their own priorities rather than the board's, and in essence, function like a fourth commissioner. So that was a concern. A third concern was just the adjustment that you'll need to make in the transition in letting go of the day-to-day administration and moving into more of a policy and advocacy role in the region. And then whenever you make changes within an organization, there's always the possibility of ripple effects in terms of, there could be it could make other people decide, well, it's time for me to make a change. So you could see some other turnover in positions. And typically a county administrator is paid more than a county director. And so there at least will be some small budget impact. So those are the prime cons, I think. Let's turn now briefly to the Sports Services Director. What are the positives of that? One of the things that I heard is just that essentially that it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that the county is working well right now. That you've been very successful in the last 4 years or so in really turning around the budget for Mason County. That you're really looking at formalizing now and already have accumulated a 25% fund balance above expenditures. Things like systems like Munis, which had been a bit of a problem to get implemented, you've been able to turn that around. So a sense that the county is moving in a good direction currently, and why change that structure? The current structure where all the departments report up to the Board of County Commissioners means that you commissioners are well engaged with both the administration and the work of those departments. So you're well informed about the work within the departments. And then finally, you are in a position, because everything reports up to you, to step in directly when there's a personnel or a budget issue. You're able to get your hands in to directly fix it. So those are some of the pros of the current structure. What are some of the concerns or cons that were raised? One is that having these 3 co-equal departments, again, sports services, community services, and public works, And by the way, there's also extension and public defense, smaller departments that also report directly up to you. But by having that triumvirate of co-equal major departments, encourages a certain amount of siloing between the departments. There's not great sharing of information necessarily between the departments. And there are projects that really could use a collaboration where it's really one department going alone. The current structure also can invite end runs. So because, for example, HR and budget and finance are housed within support services, but since they're just, since support services is just a co-equal with the other departments, it can invite both the appointed departments and the independent elected officials to say, you know, I think I'll just take it right directly to the commissioners and do an end run. And so that's been a problem sometimes. And then there's the opportunity cost of your time in dealing with the administration of the departments. It means that you have less time and less bandwidth for doing other work, right? For diving into a particular issue, for working on your committee assignments, for doing intergovernmental relations. It sort of keeps you closer to home, so to speak. And then finally, for the departments and others, it's simply less efficient if they have to work with 3 bosses rather than 1 boss on the administration side of things. And so it ends up making more work for the departments, and also can invite them to be shopping for answers by going to you guys individually. So that's a summary. That's a very brief summary. There's more points that's in the background memo that you received before today, but that's sort of a 30,000-foot flyover. And so at this point, I guess what I'd like to do is, starting with Commissioner Netherland, is ask you to elaborate on anything I said or add additional points.
Well, are you asking me to elaborate just on what you're talking about, or give my position on some of this?
All of the above.
Okay, to elaborate on what you've said, as you and I had a discussion before, I disagree with many of the different things. For one, I would like to say there's nothing that we think gets solved by having an administrator that doesn't and can't still happen underneath the director. And there's nothing that supposedly goes away that truly goes away. For example, the idea that of them being siloed, they're going to be siloed no matter what you do and how you bring people in, because that's how departments work. I myself, there's no secret, I am not in support of an administrator or an executive. We had one. We have history here in this county. We don't need it. In my opinion, we have been making it work, and it's been working well. Someone as powerful as an administrator, in my opinion, should be elected, because once you bring somebody into that position, the possibilities of changing them are very, very hard. And I'm not saying that just as a guess. Through history, I already know, as being here long enough to know what that looks like and how hard that actually is to accomplish once you bring them into that position. I believe that bringing in any type of executive or administrator puts a separation between me as an elected official and the people that work underneath us or with us, and the citizenry, because that's how that works. Look at the cities, look at everybody around you, including even your school districts. We can't just pretend it's going to be different here when it doesn't serve as it should, in my opinion, in these other ones. I am, and I always will be against administrative rule of law. And anytime you put somebody like this in a position that way and you start empowering and giving them more and more power, inherently that is going to happen. So we will be creating a situation where you'll have somebody that's not elected that will be making the call. But the call gets made even by deciding what comes before you and what comes before me. That's a call all by itself. So again, it puts a separation. As a commissioner, since I got elected here, the first couple of years, it took me several years to fight and for us to take back our responsibilities as commissioners. It wasn't always like what we're doing now. And so it wasn't always successful, but it's been successful these past many years after we took back our responsibilities. When I came in, I was amazed how many responsibilities as an elected and answering to these people that were gone, but we've taken back many of them. And if we're going to give up our responsibilities, then we also honestly, and even if we say it shifts it, as was brought forward by Philip, that we have more things we can do in the public. I already do those things in the public. That doesn't change. How much I can take on, I just take on more. But if we're going to talk about taking things off of our desk and responsibilities off of our plate, then we also need to talk about changing our pay structure to pay us accordingly to the work we're going to do. I don't think the people elected us and put us in this position to have an opinion. I remember when I first got elected, that's one of the commissioners told me was their job was to have an opinion. My job was to have an opinion. I think they were incorrect. There was so much that we had no control over when I came in that we ended up gaining control, and it takes a while and it was not always easy, but in the end it ended up working. And that's one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in, because the hard fights that had happened in the past. So with that being said, that pretty much wraps up where I'm at for the most part. You guys already know me. If you two vote that you want to do this, I'm still going to support you. I'm going to support it. There's never been a time when I voted nay that I did not sign the paperwork. I always come in behind whatever the decision is. You win some and you lose some. I think it would be a very poor decision, and I'm entitled to my position just like you're going to be entitled to yours. What it comes down to is the vote at the end, and I'm prepared to move forward however you guys decide, but I hope you will reconsider and realize that this really does and will accidentally, I know not on purpose, neither one of you would want to do this on purpose, but it will put a buffer between us and the people, us and all the hard work that we've done, and it'll start to get really sloppy again quickly. And one more piece is it's been working. And I know we have some issues that need to be fixed when it comes to getting HR out of that position. But other than that, that's been the only weakness for this when we're doing our job. So that's mine. Go ahead, Philip.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I really appreciate your point about, regardless of what the decision is trying to stick together as a board and work together. So again, whichever way this goes, I really hope that all three of you will be listening to one another and really thinking about the concerns that you hear today and how to best address those, whichever way it goes, so that those concerns are minimized. So, that's part of working together as a board, right? Okay, so Commissioner Schutte, do you want to take a crack at elaborating on things that I may have missed, or and also in expressing your own thoughts?
Sure, yeah, Philip, I appreciate the opportunity here, and appreciate all the work that you did on the front end of this to put together the summaries and the interviews. I really appreciated having the opportunity to sit down and chat with you a couple of weeks ago, and then in the past couple of days read through the commentary on both Commissioners Netherland and Trask's views on this. Was really helpful and informative. I think I certainly I brought forward pros and cons of each approach. I think there is no such thing as a perfect solution to any of the issues that we're facing. But from the beginning, have been in support of doing an administrator and shifting that support services director position to an administrator role. And I think, for some of the same reasons, but maybe from a different approach that Commissioner Netherland was talking about. And I think, when it comes to items of policy implementation and personnel management, I think that should be heavily depoliticized. And I don't mean that from the perspective of Republican and Democrat or independent or any of that kind of stuff. But I think that there should be a buffer between, sort of the line level employees, so to speak, the rank and file, and the elected leadership in terms of implementing and executing upon a personnel policy and procedures. And so that's one of the areas where I think an administrator would be very helpful to us in terms of working with us on policy development and having us set the policy course for the county, both internally and externally on projects and priorities that we as individual commissioners have and have agreed to as a board. But when it comes to the day-to-day decision making and implementation of that policy manual, I think it's best left to administrative staff versus the elected level leadership. And I think we ultimately will get at a better result there within our various departments. The other element that I think is really important is I really appreciate the work that our directors do, whether it's Frank in Support Services, Loretta in Public Works, Dave in DCD, Peter in Public Defense, WSU Extension with Dan Tudeberg. I think they work really, really hard in order to deliver on the policy priorities that we put forward. That said, I think we could be moving much more aggressively as a county to deliver on those policy priorities that we share or have consensus on. And I think there's the potential under the current structure for the directors to put a lot of time and effort into making sure they have the support of a quorum of the commissioners so that they can retain their job and continue to do work. Whereas I think having an administrator, that's one person who's concerned about that element of things and can take that pressure off of our director level staff and just have them put that time, effort, and energy into delivering on project deliverables for the county on things that we've set as priorities. And so we have made a lot of progress. There's no doubt about that. In my time on the commission, I think from where it was when I started in January 2017 to where we sit here in June of 2021, no bones about that, Commissioner Nevlin. I think we've come a long way. But part of the deal for me is I think there's still a ways to go, and it's this isn't about removing work necessarily from I'll speak for myself. It's not about removing work from my plate. I think we're still going to have a lot of responsibility and a lot of obligation here internally at the county to work with staff. And develop those internal policies and ensure that they're executed. And it also doesn't alleviate any of the outside obligations that we have to be responsive to the people that ultimately put us where we are. But I look at this as a way to be more efficient in our work, to be more efficient in our decision making, an opportunity to better facilitate difficult conversations like this. Where we each have an opportunity to share our thoughts, share our concerns, look at the pros, look at the cons, and I do think that the people of this county elected all of us for various reasons based on our own strengths and what they were optimistic for or hopeful for as the county, and so they have put that trust in us to have these conversations. And by moving to an administrator, I don't think that we lose any of that ability to communicate and work directly with the people who sent us here in order to maintain that trust. They hold us accountable. We hold an administrator accountable. We would hold our directors accountable regardless of how we move forward with this. And if you look at the very top of the organizational chart, it's the voters of Mason County first and foremost, and then us. And then however we structure it below us. And so I don't think we lose anything. I think it gives us an opportunity to work harder, work faster, work smarter, and more efficiently for the people of Mason County.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Both of you are so far very articulate, and I really appreciate you each bringing out your perspectives. I think this is excellent. Commissioner Trask, your turn.
Thanks. So I was looking through my emails, but it doesn't appear that I received the comments from the other commissioners.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. No problem. I'm absorbing it all right now. So it's all good. So as far as some of the concerns, like giving up responsibilities, absolutely not. I'm sure that we all know that none of our responsibilities will go away regardless of who we, what position we choose to either go with or to change. We're all gonna retain our responsibilities. I think for me, I look at other counties and also look at some of the larger businesses. Look at Bill Gates and the structure of his business. Look at Microsoft, Google, well, I guess that is Google and Facebook. They all have, thanks, Frank. They all have a definite structure where you have your board and then you have your administrators, your executive director, and then further down. And I think the reason that they are so successful is because of their organizational level. Mason County is going to grow. We have a lot of opportunities in our future. And I think that by bringing in a little bit of change will empower us to move forward faster at a quicker pace. It's also going to be able to, I think, having an administrator will help the other departments work better together. I feel like we're kind of divided, and that there's a competition, not really a competition per se, but there's a struggle maybe for not power, but for communication, the communication style, or being able to relay messages to all three of us because of our structure. You know, you can't, we're divided. So they'll go to each commissioner. And how do we know that we're getting all of the information anytime that there's a meeting? So I'm definitely not as eloquent in my speaking as my two seatmates, but I'm hoping that you're catching my drift. You're understanding the words.
Very good. Very good. So, you know, as I said at the beginning of this, there's really no right or wrong answer here, and you know, either way can work. And so it's really finding a way that is best going to serve the internal needs of the county, and then, you know, addressing the needs of your constituents and the businesses as well. So why don't we sort of open it up to some general discussion? Who would like to sort of start that off?
I'll dive in. I did have a question for Commissioner Netherland on an item that he mentioned as a con, and it was an item that I hadn't thought about, and I'd like to maybe hear a little bit more from him on it. There's the bullet point where it talks about the severance clause in administrator contracts, and just would like you to maybe elaborate on that a little bit more, or share some insight that might help inform our thinking. Oh, you're muted, Commissioner.
I want to point out, just so you know, I thought maybe I just missed it in my emails. I had so many, but I can't find it in mine either. So I haven't seen the other people's responses. So,
Okay.
But I'm good with that. It's all okay though, because I know the points from our other conversations. We've actually communicated pretty well. Commissioners, as we know, when you see an administrator, you start with the process of that, especially if you're not bringing somebody from the inside. The first thing that they're going to want at that level is a compensation package for when or if there's a departure or a separation. I am not a fan of. I've seen that happen in our community over and over and over again to bad results. You know, for the most part, at our director levels, it's not as much an issue, but I think if you're going to try and bring one from another area for an executive position, such as what we're talking about, I can't see how they won't want some type of compensation package.
Yeah, and what are the concerns you have with that? So yes, severance as part of an employment agreement is pretty standard in these positions. You're correct in that. So what's the concern that you have with that?
I don't usually see them end up well. It ends up costing the entity a lot more. The only protection that it gives is for the person you bring in and not for the entity. You can't force them to stay at a place. Put the clause that works both ways.
Right. Yeah. Typically with a severance clause, the way it works is what the jurisdiction gets out of that is the severance is tied to a release on any claims, and so if you let go of an administrator or a director, essentially there's no risk to you at that point because the person that's leaving is not going to come back and sue you for age or gender discrimination or wrongful termination or anything like that. They've signed off on a release in order to have the severance. A condition is signing a full release, and so it protects the organization.
Yeah, about that much, Philip, because I've been through that several times, and it doesn't always work that way. Without a doubt, it doesn't always work that way. I can mention transit. I can mention a few of the other ones to tell you it's just not that simple. It'd be nice if they followed what they agreed to.
Well, a court will follow it.
No, you hope, but that costs a lot of money too.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question enough?
Yeah, no, I thought that's helpful.
For myself, one of the things I'd like to share with you guys again, as even when you have a director, let alone somebody in a position as administrator, it is hard enough to keep them within their bounds. And I can tell you right now as a commissioner, you put an administrator in, the very first time that you have an issue that you're working through, and whether they tell you verbally or not, if they just keep it to themselves and they get to a point where they say, so what? That will be the first and the beginning part of the diminishing of your abilities to get the job done and your ability to represent the community. That's one of the biggest fears I have. I have an actual question I'd like to ask. Around us, we have quite a few that do this. School districts, we have, the city, stuff like that. And even a few, which one would we like to emulate? I know ours may not be perfect, but none is. But if we're going to change our structure, which one are we trying to emulate? I guess is my question. Well, no, I'm actually asking the other commissioners, if you don't mind. I'd like to hear which ones they would like to be more like.
Okay.
Well, and I'll jump on that one. I don't think that I'm trying to emulate any of the local governments, including the school boards or MTA or anything like that. What I'm striving for is a better functioning county government. Mm-hmm. So it has nothing to do with the smaller governments at all, but the county government. As we grow, I think that we're going to have a lot more on our plate. Many more decisions are going to have to be made, maybe not spur of the moment, but with a quicker decision making timeline. And so by the time that it gets to the Board of Commissioners, the BOCC, then by then everything should have already been discussed. So if there are, let's just say that there was, so let's bring up HR. So if there was an HR issue, a solution would be presented to the board, not how are we going to solve this? Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense, but at the same time, I think you do that with whichever one you choose. It's whatever the task you put on the employee. But literally, though, that still brings back my question, though. if we're changing it to be like something, which, I hope we're changing it because we think one is going to be a better solution or work better than what we have. And that's why I'm asking you which one you think actually works better than what we already currently have. I know your intentions are true, Commissioner. I have no doubt in my mind your intentions are true. I'm trying to figure out, though, which one we think is better and why we think it's better so that I could change my mind and be okay with it.
Oh, I don't think that any of us have any ill intent
No, I know that.
for the county at all. I think, and it's not a local government, so I'm looking more at county governments than school boards or anything like that. So county governments, if we go for a rural county government, I would say Lewis County is a good example of a well-functioning county. Yeah, do they have their issues? They do. I think everybody, regardless of where you go, you're going to have problems, but it's how those problems are resolved. What is he called? County administrator, I think. I work with him on other boards, and he is amazing. He smart as a whip, and just he's got a passion for Lewis County and for making it a place where everybody wants to go to work, to vacation, to open a business. And I think as Mason County grows, we need that. We need to have that additional help in solving problems and moving forward.
So if I can jump in, what I think your comments, Commissioner Trask, partially address what I was thinking, and that is one of the key things in your question, Commissioner Netherland, is what is the legislative body that you're talking about? And I think the size of having 3 commissioners gives there's much more direct accountability for an administrator than, for example, with a city council that's going to have a larger number of people and that are very part-time. You are full-time commissioners, and there's just 3 of you. And so there's much less diffusion of a sense of, oh, I'm just a small player in this. No, there are just 3 of you. You guys own the county and feel it very personally, and that's not going to change. And so that changes the relationship with your chief executive, your chief administrative officer. And there's much more accountability than, for example, with a school board that's part-time and that's much larger. So, I think by looking to other counties, that makes sense. So, for example, if you look at the 19 counties whose population is the same or greater than Mason County, 13 out of the 19 either have an administrator or an executive, and just 6 are run by the Board of County Commissioners administratively. So, I think as you look towards the larger counties, you'll see sort of a tendency to be going more towards the legislative body and having some sort of chief administrative officer.
Well, and Philip, I appreciate your opinion on it, but the truth of the matter is I'm not trying to be convinced by you or your opinion. I was asking the commissioners why they wanted the change and what they were hoping to achieve or to emulate. I can't say the word today because I'm sure there is something, knowing them, they're smart people. There's got to be something they're trying to achieve and that I'm missing or that I haven't seen, or maybe I'm not missing it and it's something that can be achieved with what we've already been doing. That's what I was actually looking for. We can give reasons all day long, especially if we want to just say to be like other communities. And I appreciate your answer, Commissioner Trask, on that person and stuff too. the person sounds incredible. And I don't know that I've ever had an opportunity to work with them. And I know Lewis County is a good county and they're doing well. I don't know how their structure works. I will do some more research to find out a little more about how all that works. I know that when I go to the room and I serve with those people, I expect to be them. I expect to be doing and touting how great Mason County is and trying to make it better. So my being there, I think is the same as them, but maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Commissioner Schutte, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so I would say, there's a saying you might be familiar with, and it's comparison is the thief of joy. And I'm not necessarily interested in what specific jurisdictions are doing, as much as I am interested in the opportunity that this structure would present for us. I think it's always easier to sit, on the outside, and say, I could be critical of what the city of Shelton is doing based on their organizational structure, or a PUD, or a school district, or Seattle, or whatever, and for me it's not about trying to imitate another jurisdiction or anything. It's about trying to find a way for us to be able to be more effective and efficient in our deliberation and our execution of our duties. And I think going back to my earlier point, I think there are some things that should be taken out of the hands of the legislative authority, in terms of executing on the personnel policies that we develop and adopt, and it gives us a chance to have a one centralized resource. In fact, I think that was one of the pros that you had listed, was that it provides basically my words not yours, a one-stop shop for digging into issues. And the bottom line, regardless of the direction that we head here, it comes down to how we hire, and that's and I'm looking at Sonia, how we recruit. And that was another big factor for me in thinking about this, because I really think that Mason County is just a tremendous community, and the opportunities are endless for us. And to take an opportunity to look at restructuring how we work internally so that we can maximize those opportunities for our entire community, I think is really appealing. And would give us a chance to, get stronger where we need to, reinforce those areas where, as you said, Commissioner Nelson, that we've worked really hard on over the past several years to improve upon, and really put us in a position to take that leap. And so, for me, it's not about duplicating what anybody else is doing, but it's about, demanding the very best work product we can from ourselves and from those that we hire to execute on the policies that we adopt.
And you don't think we could do that with a director position?
I think it would be, it's not impossible. And I put that in my comments to Philip when we met, a couple of weeks ago. It's not impossible, but I don't know that it's the best way.
Yeah, Frank just sent them to me. I haven't had a chance to see him yet, but I'll read them here.
And I tried to be, I'll fully admit my bias heading into this,
As will I, Commissioner. You're right, because I've had the bias on the opposite side.
And so just to be completely, open-minded about it. I think we could continue to make progress on moving things forward under the current structure, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity left untapped, in the sense of the time, effort, and energy that the directors that we have to put into, especially the three core directors. I don't want to take anything away from public defense or WSU extension, but in large part, in public defense's case, they're operating, predominantly with the courts, and they come to us with different different things, predominantly at budget time. And WSU Extension, essentially serves two masters in their own way. And so it's, but I mean, I think our three core, directors, I think this would free them up, to be, I think more present to their staff, more responsive to their direct reports, and really kind of streamline the process, to maximize everybody's time and effort and energy. We have big decisions in front of us. If we do want to take that leap, we're going to need to be thinking about things that are happening not just this year and next, but 5-10 years down the road. In order to put ourselves in a position to be successful, we need somebody that can be a partner to us, in the community, not somebody that's going to be competing with us. And that all comes back to how you hire, and finding good candidates. But we need somebody that can be here when we can't be, doing things at the day-to-day personnel management level, thinking about, like, kind of Commissioner Trask's point, like, evaluating things. How many times, Commissioner Netherland, have we gotten had to have multiple briefings on reclasses, employee reclasses, where basically the outcome of that conversation was, hey, HR denied this. They appeal it to us, and we say, well, just go back and talk to Frank, and let's figure this out. You know what I mean? It's just like, we have a personnel policy, and if it was denied based on following that policy, then that, boom, ended discussion. And that might just seem like 5 or 10 minutes of our briefing time, but boy, would I love to put that 5, 10, 15 minutes into having a more in-depth conversation to learn more about what your priorities are for infrastructure, or what Commissioner Trask is thinking about, homelessness response, or things like that really could have just been handled at an administrative level. And if there's a need to change the policy, that's a different conversation. If the reclass policy isn't working, then that's on us to fix it. But if it's just a simple, hey, this didn't meet the requirements and I don't like it, that shouldn't be something that I think we should be spending time on. And that all adds up throughout the year. And I think it's just about making us more effective in our positions, and being able to tackle some of those bigger issues.
Well, that's a great example. But on that one, you do realize that as commissioners, there's been several times that we sent it back because we have helped them to change it to where it would work, where it normally would have been just said no. And so we've made it, by doing our jobs on that, we've made it better for those other electeds and departments and helped them to get through the process. And they've come back, and we've rethought about it and found ways to move them forward. So some of that is a good point on us for being there and doing that job that we do on regarding those reclasses. That's why they're appealing to us.
Commissioner Trask, I know that you had some thoughts about just the time demands that the HR stuff has, and other thoughts on HR. Do you want to share those?
Yeah. So we do spend a lot of time dealing with HR issues, and good or bad. And I'm happy to know that we have been able to resolve some of those issues. But I feel like there's a lot of time where having kind of bouncing off of what Commissioner Sheedy said, having time to spend more time on, so I'm on the legislative steering committee, I would have more time to review the bills that were going before the legislature, so that I would have a good solid testimony to give to the legislators, so that I could say, this is how this is affecting Mason County. I would have more time to talk with the budget folks. There are times when I feel like my time is just strapped, I guess, where, like I said before, I am not as eloquent with my wording. I was raised on a farm, so it was one-liners. Go down, do the water, do the irrigating. And so what I'm trying to do is justify, I guess not justify, but explain why I feel like the time that I'm spending on HR issues shouldn't be necessary. It should be more of a quick decision. I feel like things that were brought to us, HR didn't agree with it, but we didn't get that full explanation either as to why they disagreed with it, why there was an issue with the reclass or the request for a new position. Some of that was not passed on to us, and I don't know whether it was because it wasn't felt that that it was their job to let us know, when it absolutely is. If we're dealing with HR issues, that's absolutely our job, and we need to have all the information. So I think that there's still a lot of communication that's not being relayed to the commissioners, whereas if we had an administrator, that administrator would be able to dedicate 100% of their time to the support that the commissioners need to make a decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one of the roles that a county administrator can play is sort of quality control of what comes, to make sure that the information is complete that comes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Quality control. I'll go with that one.
Yeah.
Can I dive in for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so just I wanted to maybe ask Commissioner Netherland the inverse of the question he asked us. So I'm not going to ask you to name names. You know, I mean, unless you want to, feel free. That would really make this must-see Mason Web TV. But you know, when you look at our neighboring, whether they're junior districts or neighboring counties, what would be a few things that you would maybe you see them doing that you would say, okay, is, you know, even if we go this direction to an administrator, let's try to you know, root those couple of things out of a you know, a job description or an agreement in order to you know, I'll use Philip's terminology from earlier, kind of mitigate some of those things that you think are ineffective or problematic.
That's a great question, because that's one of the ways I'm trying to look at it, is find ways to get over some of those hurdles. But to be honest with you, I haven't been able to find. I think that's why I'm fighting so hard. For example, the separation and the siloing that'll occur from us, from these departments. I don't know how to overcome that, because you can't put that into a job you know, structure. You can't. You have to get lucky and pick it. We have to end up getting a George Washington instead of somebody who wants to be king. But the thing is, as I explained to Philip when we were talking, it is possible, but I'm afraid what happens when it isn't. And I have not been able to see a way to be able to change it back or to fix it without a lot of time and bloodshed and horrible things that come with it. But I am looking to try and figure out some of the ways to mitigate it, because I think we probably will end up in that direction. But I don't have a good answer. If I had, then I probably would already be supportive. You know, the one thing I'm finally reading your stuff, you guys' stuff. That's what I'm doing right now. Is it was sent to me, and I want to point out the end runs is a big issue. I haven't gotten to Sharon's stuff yet, but she's saying the same thing, and so I want to tell you that's one of the issues that I see with what we have now. But we're going to have that regardless of who you put in there. That end run problem is ours. And it's up to us to stop that from happening when they come into our room. Even if we end up with an administrator, we're still going to have that happen. And we're going to need to tell them, please, that's not appropriate to be done with me. And we can't do that here, no matter who we get. But that is a big one. It happens to us right now. I don't know if it would change if we had HR separated out of this, so that, or not, as you know, I've thought about separating. I'd like to see us separate those two. But no. Again, I appreciate your question, Commissioner. I don't have a great answer for it because I haven't found it, but I am looking, because, as I said, I think that's probably where we're going to end up. I disagree, but at the same time, my job is to try and make the best of it that I can if we do disagree with each other.
I think Commissioner Netherland, your point is really well taken about that. It's really regardless of what structure you folks end up with, that it's really ultimately comes back to the discipline of the three commissioners to use the structure that you've put in place and to not allow those end runs, but rather direct the people back, whether it's an independent elected, whether it's an appointed department director or a manager, to send them back through the right channel rather than allowing the end run. So yeah, ultimately it comes to the discipline that you practice.
I will share that there is one pro that you guys will put forward. Actually, Kevin, it's yours because I haven't gotten to share it yet, so my apology. The enhanced communication is one I cannot deny, and I can't see, because when you have one person that's over the top of all of them, then you're going to have a direct communication with all of them when you're doing it. And for trying to find the positives, that is the strongest argument that I have seen so far in regards to why have somebody like that. I would rather find a way to do that within the structure we currently have, but right now I can't. That is a very, very specific statement that is, I can't argue with. It's extremely strong.
Yeah, and you know, to that end, I mean, that was something. If you think back to the employee survey we conducted a couple of years ago through WSU's, you know, School of Governmental Studies, that was the top issue that respondents had with, you know, one of the areas that they wanted to see improved. You know, that was their priority, and so that was something that's really been on my mind. You know, and I think honestly too, you know, as much as it is about improving communication for, you know, staff, you know, throughout the county, I also think that would help with communicating more broadly to the community, and in particular with our partner agencies. You know, and I think there's some benefit to that as well. I mean, you know, you don't have to tell either of you, you know, how much it's been a struggle to sometimes, you know, have effective communication with our other public agencies in the community, and you know, do regular check-ins with them, or understand why it is that, you know, they're doing what they're doing, or even help them understand, you know, why we're doing what we're doing. And so I think there's a twofold benefit to the communication aspect of that.
And I think you'll see on mine, one of my concerns would be that future commissioners would relax or glide through. The three of us, there's absolutely no gliding or relaxing on our parts, but there is always a risk that you do get a commissioner that's not as passionate, I guess, about serving the people.
I'm sorry.
I want to say that carefully, but I don't know that it came out careful. But so, I mean, that relies that's a burden on the people to make sure that they elect a person that will represent them and not just glide.
The first surprise you get is that the people elected you. The second surprise is who else they elected.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and that's also a concern with who the next person is, whether we decide that it's a county administrator or the support services director. That person has a lot of responsibility to, I guess, do their job, to follow their job description, and also to read between the lines. So it's going to be either way. Honestly, I'm like Commissioner Netherland said, we'll work with what we have, and we'll make what we have work. And so I don't know. I just want everybody to know that we're not gliding by.
I've got the rug burns to prove that. I think I'm being done. So, Commissioner, I did get a chance to finally to read yours as well, and I appreciate your comments as well. It's funny because you guys have some of the same comments. Again, the end around 1 week, that's up to us to fix. I think a lot of these, though, can be done within the structure that we have, but you also both, you know, the communication aspect, I don't know what to say other than that is, and it's not, Frank, that has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with one person that is, the one you're communicating with for everybody. And then hopefully they break it down. Again, though, you both also seem to recognize that there are some inherent risks with having an administrator. The question is, can you guys help me to figure out how we can protect ourselves if that does happen? Because I've seen it before, even when they weren't an administrator, I've seen how hard it was and how it takes years to make a change. And it can be very horrible as you're going through it, where, the same could be said for the position, a director position that we have now, in place too. I recognize that.
Yeah, I think for me, you learn from history, you don't repeat it. And so for me, learning from history is improving on it. I think Commissioner Netherland, you said you don't run into a wall and get the line on your head and then do it again and expect the same, and expect something different. And so in my eyes, learning from history, you don't make the same mistakes, but you do move forward. You do have to, change is sometimes hard, but moving forward, I think is the main reason for change.
Except for my hope is we know what we're doing. We're moving forward with the idea of actually doing better because it's proven. That's why I asked that question earlier about which one we want to emulate. Because if we're going to do the same thing that they're doing, what is the benefit we're trying to get? Because I understand what Kevin said, and I agree. I don't think that's been, anything you've said since we started. But I know, Commissioner Trask, we have talked about the other counties, the other things. I'm trying to figure out what we're really trying to emulate, because, to use a different quote, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, you look around and we see what we have out there and we see what the result is of it. I don't want that result. So what is it that we're going to achieve by doing the same thing is what I'm hoping to find an answer to. And if not, I agree we need to move forward, but maybe this isn't right. Maybe there's another one we haven't considered yet. And I don't know what it is. I'm just putting it out there. If I had that answer, I'd have thrown that out a long time ago.
Can I make some suggestions on the mitigation side of the concerns that have been raised on the administrator position? A couple of things. One is just like the issue of end run ultimately depends on the discipline of the Board of Commissioners. The making a county administrator position work and mitigating the potential risks there also rests with you. So a couple of things there. Number one, what you would probably want to do is build into your employment agreement with a county administrator to do an annual performance review and then be disciplined in doing that and giving accurate and real feedback to the county administrator. And then the second thing that really rests with the Board of County Commissioners is setting priorities and tasking the county administrator of what you want them to do, and then hold them accountable. And so if you fail to do those things, yes, there are no tracks anymore and the train starts wandering. But if you set clear expectations and priorities, now there's something that you can hold the county administrator accountable to, and there's a mechanism to do that with, and that's an annual review. And if done correctly, if you always want to help somebody succeed, but after doing, you can certainly want to do at least an annual review, but if you're running into problems, you can have interim reviews in the meantime. And if somebody's not able, you want to help them succeed and give them direction of what they need to do differently. But if they're not doing it, it's your county commissioners, and yes, you can make a change.
In the beginning, I didn't want a county administrator or or to change. I thought, it did work and does work well. But as I talked to other commissioners and council members, I became a little jealous of their structure, honestly. And I want a good positive structure for Mason County.
It's funny. I agree with you. What's really funny is you go to Kitsap, you go to all these other counties. Not only do they have administrators, they also have secretaries and stuff for their staff. We don't have anything like that. We do it all ourselves. It's ours and our responsibility. I don't know that I would want to change that, although it would be nice to do like Kitsap does and just throw everything out the door and it all gets done. What a wonderful concept. But I don't see that happening in Mason County anytime soon. So
Yeah.
there's a lot I'm
Kitsap
jealous about, but
yeah. Would this be a good time, commissioners, to hear from Frank Pinter?
yes, I would love to.
Okay. Frank, do you want to offer your perspective on the pros and cons and what your advice as you're looking at moving towards retirement?
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, commissioners. As I've said before, it's up to the responsibility of the board to decide on the organizational structure for Mason County as it relates to the future benefits for the county. My retirement does give the county an opportunity to change course if they would like, to reorganize the structure of the departments. Not that that can't be done at any point in time, but this is kind of a natural reformative type of opportunity. There are benefits for the support services director position, which we're all familiar with. It works well in the environment and in the situation that we currently have. We do have that one nagging issue around HR being under the support services structure. And that then gives the support services director somewhat of a higher structured position, if for lack of a better term, as opposed to a position that's equal amongst peers, because all the other directors need to come to the support services director for permission to move forward with a reclass or a reorg or a new position. What the opportunity offers is for the county to move towards a county administrator. There, the county may not need that position today, but in time, it will probably move in that direction. And what I mean by that is, as the county begins to grow and the population begins to increase, the natural tendency is for larger counties to move towards a county administrator as an organizational structure to give the county board the opportunity to do more directed and specific or to perform objectives or to get to their objectives for more directly direct specific goals that they may have. And the county administrator can use their longevity and their time in that position to give some continuity to the county between county boards that come and go on a shorter or longer term basis. So what I'll give are recommendations towards the person that we should hire. And that person should be somebody that's a high-level professional and has public administration expertise. The recommendation there would be to have somebody that is has a public administrative degree, has had at least some prior experience at a high level of public administration management, regardless of whether that's for an administrator or a director. works well in a high pressure environment. Not that any of the other directors don't experience a high pressure environment, but a county administrator definitely will. Communicates well with public officials, and can communicate well with 3 independent commissioners. That's a unique challenge that this position has, in that there's a need to be able to maintain a level of professionalism, confidentiality, and let's just say credence to each of the separate commissioners in trying to manipulate, to move through the questions that the board may have in regards to any myriad of different issues. So my recommendation is to put it back on the board, let the 3 of you make a decision, but to make sure that the person that gets hired, regardless of which position it is, has at least those qualifications, the most important part of which is to bring a professional level experience and expertise to the county as a public administrator, so that they can come into the position running rather than take 5 years to get up to speed with what needs to be done as part of the requirements for Mason County.
Thank you, Frank. Questions or thoughts, commissioners?
I'll just say, you know, one of the things that kind of came to me as I was listening to Frank's recommendations there on skill set and background and everything is, you know, I think it would, you know, I think we need to have somebody in that role that will, you know, allow us to govern with each other and not govern through directors, and somebody who could facilitate that process and you know, those conversations in that way. You know, and so I completely agree with you know, Frank's assessment of some of those skills and background that would be necessary in a position moving forward.
Yeah, and I'd agree that it's good to have that skill set in any position, whether it be a administrator or a director position, having those talents, because that is what support services director was supposed to do when we first started this, was to be able to work between the commissioners to make sure that these things were happening.
I thought it was very special how Frank said that it's maybe not politically correct, but the way you have to work through the different personalities of the commissioners. I thought that was cute.
My favorite line is Diane's something along the lines of, be careful what you say, or don't say anything bad about past commissioners because they come back.
I wonder, Sonia, in terms of the qualifications that Frank was outlining, do you have a perspective in terms of recruiting, the ease or difficulty of doing that for the respective positions?
Yeah, I believe that because the HR function is under Frank's position, and bringing someone in, as you guys have said, from Frank's definition of, you know, he basically defined a county administrator, the experience that they need, we call it political savviness. When we put a profile together for a county administrator, city manager, we say, you know, you must be political savvy to, you know, having had the experience working with boards or electeds. I was an elected, so I can say political savviness for electeds. And so I think you're going to get a higher quality candidates at a county administrator position because of the experience that you as you are growing and with the functions that are under that position. I think it's going to be hard for county administrators to ever apply for the job of the Frank's position, because that would be taking a step back. They'd be going back from being a deputy. So, and typically in recruitments and in county management and city management, what you find is they start as a department director, then they'll start at a small city, then they might go to a small county. And as their career progresses, so does the population in the counties. And so by the time you're getting to a size of a Mason County, you're going to have somebody with quite a bit of experience in city management, county management. So to get somebody at your size to take a department director position with a lot of the qualities that Frank just, it's going to be difficult. It's not that it can't happen, but you're going to get a much better quality candidate pool if it's a county administrator position and title, if that makes sense.
And pay.
And pay.
Good. Thank you, Sonia. So why don't we open it up again for just some more general discussion among commissioners?
Still reading everybody's stuff, sorry. I'm not ignoring any of you. I'm multitasking or trying.
Okay, and Commissioner Trask, did you get the material emailed to you as well during this meeting?
I did. So you'll see my head going back and forth too. So
okay, all right. I'm awfully sorry that there was a breakdown in packet distribution.
no, not a worry at all. I think that we all pretty much know where all of us have ideas.
Yeah.
And I know that all three of us can really work together and come up with a good solid recommendation. So I think overall we're pretty darn good group of commissioners, and with your guidance and Sonia, I think that we can come up with a good positive forward motion for Mason County.
Can I go back to and ask you, Commissioner Netherland, some of the suggestions I made in terms of annual review, setting priorities, and the role of the board in mitigating some of the concerns that you've well articulated? Did that seem on point?
No, oh, yes and no. Those are all good things to have, but it won't fix the issue when it happens, or if it happens. You're still going to be in the same position. But those are all good points to have, and we should be doing that anyway. I agree.
Okay. One of the things that's in the packet that you'll see is also the International City and County Managers Association, ICMA, Code of Ethics. And I'm very familiar with typically for a city manager or a county administrator, part of their employment contract is that they are held to adhere to that code of ethics, which, if you look at it, includes some of the things that really address partially what you've been talking about, Commissioner Netherland. So one is, so point number 6 in that is to recognize that the elected representatives are accountable to the community for the decisions they make, and that the county administrators, for example, are responsible for implementing those decisions, the decisions of the elected board. So that's first and foremost, is the administrator administers your priorities and your policies. Secondly, that item number 5 is submitting policy proposals to the electeds and provide them with facts and technical professional advice about policy options. So really giving you a responsibility to give you a full menu of options so that you can make an informed choice, and then collaborate with them in setting goals for the community and organization. So again, that idea of you setting the priority and the direction so that the administrator can carry it out. And then item number 11 touches on one of the other themes that's come out in your interviews and in discussion today, and that is handling all, number 11, handling all matters of personnel on the basis of merit so that fairness and impartiality govern a member's decision pertaining to appointments, pay adjustments, promotions, and discipline. So all the HR things. So it's really about bringing fairness and uniformity to those HR practices. So those are some of the things that are part of the ICMA Code of Ethics that you can hold an administrator accountable to.
Wow, I love those. Those are some powerful points.
The only problem with it is we have speed limit signs out there, and when you get your license, you say, well, you won't exceed this speed, but having that sign doesn't change it. They're still going to go fast. They're still going to, so, you know, the words.
Well, you guys are the traffic deputies on that.
Yeah. You know, no matter how I frame it in my head, if we get to a position to where we're telling the elected officials, the other directors, the other staff, that you need to bring that to the executive before it comes to us, we will already have separated ourselves from all of them and our duties that we currently do. The communication aspect is important. I'd love to find a way to do that and not let this other happen. I haven't figured that out yet, but
Commissioner, just on that point, what do you do when another department comes to you with an HR matter? Do you handle that directly, or do you send that over to Frank?
I agree with you. Certain matters have to go through certain things, but at some point when you set up an administrator, then almost all things. Look at every other entity we just mentioned here earlier. Most of them have moved over to something called policy governance, of which I am definitely not a fan of. It wasn't made for governmental entities, but governmental entities have taken it on as though it's a Bible. That's what happens quite often when you start to work in the process of an administrator and work behind an administrator. And I have not seen a way to get around that yet. So no, I see what you're saying, but there are some things you do have to send to different departments. That's our job. But there are a lot of things that they expect us and hope that we will take on and we will make happen. And that will change when there's an administrator. It's inherent. There's just no way around that. No matter how much we'll try to be individuals, that will diminish. Not just by us, it'll diminish for the next ones that come in with it already established as a process. I can understand that tomorrow there may be a time where it is needed, okay? But right now, I still think the very best that we have to offer our community and the best way to offer ourselves to the community is by doing the job we're doing now and have the direct interactions that we have now. Tomorrow, when the time comes as we grow and it becomes more important, then that will be the best thing we can offer the people. Then that's when we should bring that in. That's where I'm still at. But again, as I said before, you guys have worked with me a long time. We can argue and debate. Well, I'll sign if the vote comes, I'll sign the paper when it's done, and I will support it wholeheartedly, whether I like it or not. It doesn't work that way. In my opinion, none of us have the right, even though that's the way it's always been done here. They don't sign if they vote no. I think all of us have to understand we work together. The vote is for the whole family, not just for the individual. And when we lose them, we lose them. We keep going, staying together.
That's fantastic. That's great.
If I may add to the question about communication with the electeds and the other departments, that can be facilitated through a meeting of all of the electeds and the directors as we used to have. We had one about a year ago, the last one. We had them quarterly, and because of COVID, that kind of got dropped. But that's something that can be brought back to the forefront. And I know we've recently had some conversation about making that happen again, but that's one tool that can be used to facilitate direct communication between the board and all of the directors and elected officials and the county administrator towards getting everybody on the same path. Strategic plans are best developed in that environment where everybody's on board, moving towards a set of goals that the county has put forward, and again, developing a strategic plan and following through on its development. And a strategic plan is a live document. It's good for a couple of years, and then it needs to be reevaluated, determine what worked, what didn't work, what needs to happen today, as opposed to what we talked about 2 or 3 years ago. So, that's another piece of administrative management that would go a long way towards developing a better communication between the departments and the board.
So Frank, just for the record, I'm sure you're already aware, but we are going to be late in having that closed session. Okay.
Oh, I thought it was scheduled for 3.
Mine came on at 2.
Oh,
She's got 2 on hers also. Yeah.
I put it on.
Go ahead, Diane.
It might be on your calendars at 2, but it was on the agenda at 3, so we're good.
Correct.
Okay.
Good. Well, are you folks ready to make a decision on this? And whichever way you go, I think the Prothman Company is happy to work with you both on a recruitment, but also thinking about how to write the job description or an employment agreement that tries to structure in some of the mitigation strategies that we've been talking about today, and there may be some additional ones as well.
Yeah, Philip, if you don't mind, I'll jump in at this time regarding that one. Commissioners, are you still in the same position that you were when the meeting started, that you're supportive of an administrator?
I am.
Okay. So then it's agreed that we will move forward with that. With that being said, does the commission also agree that we need to take the time to ask for some assistance from Prothman in regards to how to draw up what the actual job description will be and look like, and then have it brought back to us?
100%.
Absolutely. Yep.
So at this point, that's what we will do. If you don't mind, we'd like to ask you to go ahead and work with Frank in putting together what this would look like, so we can bring together another meeting to have further discussions on whether or not that's exactly how we would want it brought forward. But we are asking for your help in putting that together first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, certainly. We can help you on that. We'll work with Frank out details and, time wise, what kind of time it's going to take us to put that together for you.
Yeah, I think we're also going to ask that you also put together some type of pay scale to look at as well.
A salary survey. We call that a salary survey, where we would.
The only thing I worry about is, we being Mason County, I would hope that we would make sure that we're not doing specific for that job, because we have issues all the way through our county. So we'd probably want to range more than a specific number.
We almost every salary survey we do, and almost every position, director level, city manager, almost all of them have a range, 130 to 150, especially when we advertise the job. So it'll be, depending on their qualifications, where the job is offered to them at. So if we do a salary survey for you, it will come with a range, and we'll show you the city or the county will have a posted range, and then we'll also show you what that particular county administrator is earning at that point.
Okay.
So
I think that's our decision point. Do we have any other decision points that we need to look at, commissioners, that you can think of?
Not at the moment.
Frank?
No, I was just going to say we can bring it back forward to the board on the 21st of June with a job description, a salary survey, and some mitigating points, either in the job description or in the employment contract.
Okay, Philip, anything more that you think we may be missing that we should take into consideration before we end this meeting?
No, I think you've had a good discussion. I really appreciate the sense of, regardless of how this goes, that the three of you want to continue to work together and find common ground and make it work for the welfare of the citizens of Mason County. So well done on that. It's been a real pleasure for both Sonia and me to interview each of you and to talk with you and hear your thoughts and to help facilitate this discussion. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philip.
Commissioner Schutte, did you have anything else, or were we just thinking?
Well, that's just my thinking face.
Okay, all right. All right, hearing nothing else, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. For how long? Oh, the closed session will begin at, what time is it now? At 3 o'clock. So we'll let the public know that we'll go into closed session at 3 o'clock for approximately, Frank, what do you think, in a half hour?
Half an hour.
And we will be conducting no business afterwards. It'll just be for informational with the commission. Is that?
Commissioner? oh,
Yes,
sorry.
please.
You can go in sooner if you want, because it's only the three of you with Frank. So
Oh,
no public would be coming into your closed session. So you
why
can
don't
start
we,
earlier.
why don't we do that if you got the ability now, Frank, why don't we do that now? So this way we can keep this live stream going, tell the public that we will come back to announce when the closed session is over. Therefore, keeping within the bounds of what we're supposed to do.
Yeah,
And
that's why I set the 2 o'clock, so that if we ended this early, we could jump into the closed session,
gotcha.
leave
Okay.
this open, and then close it out.
So Diane, if you don't mind, would you please keep this this meeting open so I can come back in and close it after the closed session?
Yes, we'll do that.
I thank you. For Prothman and Associates, thank you so much for all your hard work. Philip, thank you very much for coming, and for all of our guests. We will be back, expected to be back in approximately 30 minutes, and no action is expected to be taken.
All right.
Thank
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
commissioners.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sonia.
Frank. Bye-bye.
All right, Commissioner, see you on the other